Why do Amazon ad strategies work sometimes and fail others? I'm tired of looking at ad accounts in death spirals. I'm tired of auditing accounts and seeing very obvious, glaring, gaping holes in their strategies. But then what I realized is that what's super obvious to me is not always clear to everyone else. I have a very specific framework that I use to uncover the best Amazon ad strategies for clients that align with their business goals. And I think it's about time that I shared my system. Too many times what I find is people get a campaign like this one. It's a good campaign. You definitely can link in the comments to go see it. But they'll charge ahead with it and we'll blindly follow a path in the beginning. And what we end up doing is just checking a box and calling it good. Or sometimes what can happen is we think, okay, I need to get my ACoS down. So we optimize for a lower ACoS because that's within our strategy goals. And then all of a sudden we see a sales drop. So we go push ads a little bit more, and then all of a sudden the total ACoS is increasing and we're wildly unprofitable, and that doesn't align with our goals. So we have this start, stop dynamic. What we end up doing is flip-flopping on objectives. And oftentimes, because we flip-flop so much, we're either start back at square one or we start back off worse than when we originally were. So what can we do about this? It really starts with goals. To create goals that align with your business, you need to understand one concept and answer two questions. That's it. So we'll get to the questions in a minute. But first, what's the one concept that you need to be able to understand to create a custom ad strategy? And that concept is sales growth and profits are opposing forces. I don't care what kind of business you have, Amazon or otherwise, this concept always rings true. And if you think about it for a second, if we are going after sales growth, that often means that we are doing more. We may be hiring additional staff or we're getting additional tools for the business, and all of those things are going to kind of suck from your sales and you have to allocate spend to them. Versus when we're in profit phase, what we're doing is we're leaning out. What expenses can we cut? And this is no different when it comes to Amazon advertising. When we are in growth phase or we're trying to accelerate sales with our advertising, what we're often doing is we're increasing bids to get that top of search visibility. We're advertising on more keywords. We're probably increasing our budgets. And again, all of those things take ad spend, which takes away from the profit of the business. Versus if we are in a profit end of the spectrum and we're optimizing towards profits, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulling back. We're probably decreasing our bids. We're adding negative keywords, potentially pausing things. We're also probably lowering some of our budgets on the things that are not performing as well. And that's how we move to more of a profit phase. So you can see on these two ends of the spectrum, on sales, we're kind of accelerating things. We're moving forward, and on profit end of the spectrum, what we're doing is we're really pulling back on things. And that's why these two things are really in opposition to each other, and they have kind of this push and pull dynamic. What I find is that most brands who are unsatisfied with their ad strategy, they're on the wrong end of the spectrum. And this leads me to my first of our two questions, and that is, where am I on the spectrum? Remember, the tension between sales and profits, it's more of a spectrum than it is a hard line. This means that the answer is going to be very personal and specific to you. It may also change and morph over time. We'll get into that a little bit when we get to our second question. But to answer this first question, you need to understand two things. One, your personal comfort levels, and then two, your profit margin. When it comes to personal comfort levels, are you okay with being more aggressive and getting a little less profit? Or is ROI very important to you? As business owners, we all have to take some risks, but how risk averse are you? You also need to take into account your profit margins. Basically, how much can you afford to lose? If you have a 50% profit margin, you have a lot more wiggle room versus if you have a 15% margin, you have to maybe run it a little bit tighter to stay profitable. So why is knowing where you are on the spectrum super important? Well, it helps you know how slow or how fast you should be going with your ad strategy. If you're very profit conscious, but you run a very aggressive ad strategy, this is not going to be the right one for you. Remember how I was saying that whole start, stop, flip-flopping dynamic? What's going to happen is you're going to launch that aggressive ad strategy, and then you're going to look at the ad spend and you're going to see the high ACoS of that strategy, and you're absolutely going to freak out, and you're going to have to pull back really quickly because, again, you are more on the profit conscious end of the spectrum than you are being comfortable with maybe those less profitable, more aggressive tasks. So this actually brings me to our second question that we have to answer when it comes to crafting our custom ad strategy. And that is, what stage is your product in? Your products are either going to fall into a growth or a launch phase, or they're going to fall into a maintenance or profitability phase. The answer to this question is going to be a lot more black and white than your answer to the first question. Remember on the sales versus profit spectrum I was talking about? So sales is where we expand and we get more, and that is the goal in the growth phase, and profits are when we pull back. So that is going to be more of your maintenance and profitability phase. It's really all about testing. Now, I'll go over how we're going to combine our answers to these two questions in a moment, but right now we really need to dig into these two stages. It will help you understand why some products it seems like you can never get profitable on, and why other products it seems like you can do absolutely no wrong. Remember the scenario I covered, how optimizing for target ACoS can kind of send you into a death spiral sometimes? The question is why? So in the maintenance and the profitability phase, what we're doing is we're looking at the data and we're figuring out what can we prune out. So what do you do if you have high ACoS? Of course, you pull back and you lower the bids. What if searches don't perform for the product? You prune those. What campaigns aren't performing? Again, we're going to lower the budget. So a product must sustain sales if you pull back on the ads for it to fall into the maintenance or the profitability phase. If a product is heavily reliant on ads to drive sales, you can guarantee that if you slow down on the ads, you are going to slow down or even in some case completely decimate the sales. Just because a product has been out for months and you've been advertising for months does not necessarily mean it's going to be past the growth phase. So actually the most difficult accounts to navigate are the ones where you're profit focused, but the products are still stuck in the growth phase. So how do you know if you're out of a growth phase? You can tell by if the product is ranked well organically or not. And how do you know if a product is ranked well organically? Well, you can maybe reverse ACE and search your products, or you basically take a look at where am I ranked organically on keywords. Or another thing that you can do, which I like doing if I'm checking across a very large account and there's a lot of products, I will look at something that I call the ad sale percentage. So to calculate this, what we do is we take the ad sales for that one product and we're going to divide it by the total sales for that one product. And this is going to give us a percentage, and it's essentially going to say what percentage of my total sales are coming from the ads. And you can see how if 90% of your total sales for a product are coming from ads, if you make drastic changes to the ads, you are essentially affecting 90% of the total sales for that product. And that is why if you're stuck in a growth phase and you do not have organic ranking and you pull back, you will see your sales have a steep decline versus being able to maintain that. So what you need is enough organic visibility that if we pull back on our ads, your products are still going to be seen and people are still going to buy them, even if you don't have the ads propping up or getting you that visibility. That's how you move into the maintenance and the profitability phase. And in this phase, we're trying to see where can we pull back on ads and still maintain sales. That doesn't mean that you're not still testing things, but your tests are often more conservative and or more limited. So let's put this all together, right? You've answered your two questions, you know where your products are, you know where you fall on the spectrum. Let's see how we can combine the answers to these two questions to figure out what is your specific strategy for your account and your business goals. So the answers to these two questions tell us two things: where we are aiming and what is standing in our way. So I think this is helpful to illustrate with several examples. If you fall more onto the profit side of the spectrum, but your product is in a growth phase, then what is standing in your way from pulling back, again, being more profitable with the product? That is your organic ranking. That is what is standing in your way, and that is what you need to correct for. But if you're profit focused and you know to move past the growth phase to get into maintenance phase for the product, which allows you to be more profitable, you have to have that product ranked. But remember, we are on the more profit side of the spectrum. So should we be running a really aggressive strategy and trying to rank across 100 keywords? No, that would potentially help you accelerate getting past the growth phase for the product, but that's not going to align with your profit conscious goals. So what we need to do is what strategy is going to help us move past the growth phase into the maintenance phase while keeping a more profit conscious approach. And so what I would recommend doing in this scenario would be your strategy would be to find specific places where you can deploy your ad spend that is going to give you the most bang for your buck. The problem with running an aggressive strategy with 100 different keywords is you're spreading out your ad spend. So what you're doing in this case is you're getting more aggressive and you're spending more. But again, that does not align with your profit goals. So what you need to do is find a handful of keywords, a select few that is going to help you move the needle the quickest so you can be more conservative with your ad spend, again, profit conscious. And then that is how you can strategically move past the growth phase into the maintenance phase, but still align with profits. Now, what if you're on the flip side? What if you still had a product that was in the growth phase, but you fall more onto the sales acceleration side of the spectrum? You're a little bit less profit conscious. Do you think if you were super conservative, if you only picked a couple keywords, that is going to give you the sales acceleration or the growth that you're after when it comes to, again, being more on the sales side of the spectrum? No, it's not going to align with your goals. It's going to be much too slow. It's going to take way too long, and you're just not going to be happy with that strategy. Does that make that strategy bad? No, but what it is not aligned with where you want to get with your particular business, although it does align with where you are in your strategy. So can you see why knowing the answer to these two questions gives you so much clarity on what strategy is going to be right for your particular account? You need to know where you're aiming for, but you also need to know where your products are. And by doing so, you can plot a strategy that not only moves you in the right direction, but it's going to follow a path that you are comfortable with. So do this. Again, you need to answer both questions. Where are you on the sales versus profit spectrum, and what phase is your product in? And if you'd like to know how there's one number, conversion rate, that makes a huge difference when you're trying to grow from growth phase to a maintenance phase with your product, highly recommend checking out this video on a new way to calculate ACoS.